Hello, my name is Kyle and today I'm going to be talking to you about the science behind epidemiology. So welcome. Today I hope to briefly talk to you about epidemics and the science behind it, and hopefully this gives you an understanding about epidemics and what it means to you. So what does the term epidemic mean? So an epidemic is a widespread occurrence of something such as a disease which has an adverse effect on the community, and epidemic doesn't always relate to disease, it can also relate to other things as well. For example, obesity levels in the UK has become an epidemic because of how many people it affects per year. So what damage does an epidemic cause? So epidemic can cause damage to the economy, to our health, and to our overall productivity. And the term epidemics was coined by the famous Greek physician Hippocrates in the 5th century BC. So what causes epidemics? So epidemics can be caused by many different factors, and these include, number one, the severity of the disease, so the virulence. Number two, the season. So many diseases become quite prevalent in different types of seasons. For example, the flu becomes prevalent in the winter, so high transmission rates. And number three, what are the conditions like in the country? Are the streets clean or are they dirty? Is there clean, plentiful water? What is the housing like? Is it overcrowded? And is there adequate nutrition? So how does an epidemic spread? How does it get worse? So diseases spread through transmission from person to person, and this can be spread through the air, through food and water, or through physical contact such as kissing or handshaking. And an epidemic can worsen if a disease is present in communities where there is poor housing, poor nutrition, or poor healthcare, or a combination of all three. And here is the chain of infection. So the infectious agents are bacteria, fungi, virus, and the reservoir is the place where the germs are able to live and multiply. And the port of exit is the way in which the germ escapes from the reservoir. And the mode of transmission is how the germs are spread, and the port of entry is how these germs enter the person. So this could be through a handshake or a kiss, as an example. And the susceptible host is the person who receives that kiss, for example, and they are vulnerable for development where the germs spread inside of them and multiply. So how do we measure transmission rates in an epidemic? So to measure the spread of infections, we calculate the reproduction rate, or the reproduction number. And to get that reproduction number, scientists get different pieces of information, and these include the positive cases of diseases, the admissions to hospital, the admissions to intensive care units, and they bring these numbers together and they add it up and calculate it to get a reproduction number. And if the R number is above 1, the higher number of new infections will be. So the higher the number, the faster the virus spreads or disease. And if this is below 1, then on average each infected person will infect fewer than one other person, meaning that the number of new infections will fall over time. So this is good. So the lower the number, the faster the number of new infections will fall, and that's how you want it. So how do you control an epidemic? So once an epidemic has been identified, it's the government's responsibility to mitigate the risk of new infections becoming apparent. So we need to control that disease, and there are key ways to control a disease. But before I mention that, I just want to mention treatment. Although treatment may not help in stopping the spread of a disease, it can help in stopping people from dying or other serious harm. And you want that death rate relatively low. You don't want it too high. So that's good. So how do you control a disease? So infection prevention. So this is by cleaning surfaces regularly, washing yourself more regularly, ensuring that you know how to wash your hands properly, and also washing your clothes more regularly and more than often. And that's good infection prevention practice. And in hospitals, barrier nursing is provided, and limits should be put in place for the amount of visitors allowed in to reduce the risk of transmission from people. And the streets should be cleaned regularly. And in the community, people should isolate themselves from others if they have disease, and social distancing measures would be put in place to ensure those transmissions are kept low. And public transport is a very high risk area. Loads of transmissions could take place because how cramped it is. So the government might stop planes coming in, they might close borders, and they might put restrictions in place for people for going onto buses or trains, and ensuring that the numbers on those are kept low. And the number one way to control an epidemic would be vaccines, because vaccines are very effective in ensuring that our immune system identifies diseases. So that's good. And how do you prevent an epidemic altogether? So better housing and more houses so that overcrowding becomes less common. Access to proper nutrition for all, as it has many health benefits to our immune system to help fight off those diseases. Better teaching on sanitation and personal hygiene, and clean and plentiful water.